Across Russia, a silent crisis is unfolding, not on battlefields, but on the endless highways that knit this vast country together. These roads, usually humming with the constant movement of goods and people, have become eerily still. Thousands of trucks, the backbone of Russian commerce, are stranded with empty fuel tanks, unable to move even a single kilometer. Drivers wait, uncertain and anxious, as the nation's supply chains grind to a halt. Many have been stuck for days with little information and dwindling supplies. This isn't a minor hiccup, it's a full-scale logistical paralysis, the likes of which Russia hasn't seen in decades. The land bridges connecting Russia's far-flung regions are collapsing under a single devastating shortage: fuel. With bridges and roads already strained, the lack of fuel is the final blow. Along highways from Moscow to Siberia, convoys of trucks sit idle, their drivers sharing rumors, frustration, and whatever food they have left. 10,000 truckers are stuck, a number growing by the hour as more vehicles run dry and join the lines. These aren't just vehicles, they're the arteries of trade, now silent. Every idle truck means lost time, lost money, and lost opportunity. The crisis began quietly, with rural gas stations running dry and prices surging to record highs, making fuel unaffordable for many. Rationing followed, but even that couldn't keep the pumps flowing. Desperation is growing as drivers search for any available fuel. Now, trucks, especially long-haul rigs, are the first to feel the full force of the shortage, stranded far from home and help. Every stalled truck is a broken link in countless supply chains. Food spoils at roadside, factories idle for want of parts, and store shelves in cities and villages alike are left empty. This is more than a transportation issue. It's a systemic failure, threatening to unravel Russia's economy, from the smallest village to the heart of Moscow. The fuel crisis has exposed a vulnerability that was hidden until now, revealing just how fragile the nation's infrastructure truly is. Russia's economic engine is seizing up, one empty tank at a time, as uncertainty spreads from the highways to the markets. The nation is grinding to a halt, and the world is watching, waiting to see how, or if, Russia can get its roads and its economy moving again. The root of Russia's fuel crisis lies in the skies, where a new kind of warfare is unfolding, far above the oil fields and refineries that once powered the nation's economy. Ukraine has launched a relentless and highly coordinated air campaign, targeting the very heart of Russia's oil infrastructure, with precision and persistence. Since late 2025, waves of Ukrainian drones and missiles have struck refineries, fuel depots, and vital pipelines, crippling Russia's ability to produce gasoline and diesel on a massive scale. These attacks are not random. They are precise, strategic, and devastatingly effective, designed to hit the most critical points in Russia's energy network. Major refineries have been forced offline, slashing Russia's fuel output and creating bottlenecks that the country's distribution system simply can't overcome, no matter how hard it tries. The International Energy Agency confirms that Russian refinery rates will remain suppressed well into 2026. Ukraine's strategy is twofold and carefully calculated: to starve the Russian military of the fuel it desperately needs to sustain its war effort, and to sow chaos and uncertainty in the civilian economy, where ordinary Russians now face long lines and empty pumps. The explosions lighting up distant refineries are a direct and visible result of the war Putin started, echoes of conflict reaching deep into Russian territory. By turning Russia's energy strength into a glaring weakness, Ukraine is bringing the war home to the aggressor, forcing Moscow to confront the consequences of its invasion. The stranded trucks, the empty pumps, and the anxious faces at gas stations are the visible results of this new and punishing phase in the conflict, one that is reshaping the battlefield far from the front lines. The numbers tell the story. 10,000 trucks stranded, millions of barrels of lost fuel production each month. Fuel prices have doubled in some regions, but scarcity is the real crisis. Long lines at gas stations, strict rationing, and empty pumps. Ukrainian strikes have knocked out at least 30% of Russia's western refining capacity. The military gets priority, leaving civilians and businesses to fight over what's left. The result, a paralyzed logistics network and a multi-billion-dollar industry on the brink. Russia's budget deficit is ballooning, driven by war costs and plummeting energy revenues. The Kremlin spends more on its military than ever, while its main source of income is literally burning. The numbers paint a clear picture, Russia is spending itself into crisis, with its economic foundations cracking. The fuel crisis is both a symptom and a cause of a much deeper economic unraveling. The fuel shortage is the first domino in a chain reaction toppling Russia's economy. What began as a problem at the pump is now rippling through every sector, exposing just how interconnected the nation's industries truly are. Trucking companies face bankruptcy as their fleets sit idle and costs mount. With fuel unavailable, thousands of trucks are stranded, unable to move goods across the country. Drivers wait for work that may never come, and logistics firms scramble to stay afloat. Broken deliveries mean factories can't get parts, assembly lines stop, and layoffs loom. Production lines that once hummed with activity now stand silent, leaving workers anxious about their future and managers desperate for solutions. Supermarkets struggle to restock. Food rots in fields and warehouses. Shelves that were once full now sit half empty, and the threat of food shortages grows with each passing day. Farmers can't harvest or transport crops, threatening food security and rural livelihoods. The agricultural sector, already under strain, now faces the risk of widespread crop loss and financial ruin for countless families. Shortages lead to inflation, prices rise, purchasing power falls, and consumer demand shrinks. Everyday essentials become luxuries, and families are forced to make difficult choices at the checkout. Businesses already struggling with supply issues now face fewer customers. The ripple effect is felt everywhere, from bustling city centers to small rural towns, as economic uncertainty deepens. The cycle of disruption, inflation, and declining activity pushes the economy toward recession. Once thriving businesses are shuttered, and the sense of crisis grows more acute with every passing week. The empty tanks of 10,000 trucks are a warning. Russia's economic sickness is spreading fast. The backbone of the nation's supply chain is breaking down, and the consequences are impossible to ignore. Every stalled delivery is a sign of a system in freefall. Packages pile up, promises go unfulfilled, and the sense of normalcy slips further away. The crisis is no longer just about fuel, it's about survival for businesses and families alike. Across Russia, people are forced to adapt, cut back, and hope for relief that may not come soon. The dominoes are falling, and the end is nowhere in sight. Each day brings new challenges, and the uncertainty of tomorrow weighs heavily on everyone. Russia's economic engine is sputtering to a stop, and the road to recovery looks longer and harder with every passing day. Facing a spiraling crisis and a massive budget deficit, the Kremlin is scrambling. Instead of fixing the fuel shortage, Moscow is raising taxes, shifting the burden onto citizens and businesses. The VAT is set to rise, making everything from bread to cars more expensive. Small businesses are pushed into higher tax brackets, draining them of resources needed to survive. These aren't solutions, they're desperate moves to fund a war as oil revenues collapse. Taking more from the private sector only deepens the crisis, starving businesses and fueling public anger. The Kremlin is demanding sacrifice, but offering no real path out of the crisis. As Russia's crisis deepens, the world is tightening the screws. Western allies are ramping up sanctions, targeting Russia's shadow fleet and making it harder to export oil. The US is imposing tariffs on countries buying Russian crude, forcing even friendly nations to reconsider. China's major ports are now turning away Russian tankers, wary of sanctions. Russia's pivot to the east is hitting limits as international caution grows. The combination of Ukrainian strikes and Western pressure is a two-front economic war. Russia's ability to fund its war is being choked off from within and without. The world is betting that economic exhaustion will do what armies cannot. For ordinary Russians, the crisis is painfully real. Empty shelves, long gas lines, and soaring prices. Fuel shortages disrupt daily life, turning routine errands into ordeals. Inflation and tax hikes are squeezing family budgets, forcing tough choices and eroding savings. The social contract, stability in exchange for political control, is breaking down. Job insecurity is rising as factories slow and transport companies falter. The sight of stranded trucks is a daily reminder that the system is failing. Quiet, resentment, and fear are spreading as the war's costs hit home. The conflict is no longer distant, it's threatening livelihoods across Russia. As 2026 unfolds, Russia faces a crossroads with no easy answers. The best-case scenario, a massive state-driven effort to repair refineries and ration fuel, demanding huge sacrifices from the public. The more likely path, the crisis deepens, Ukraine's strikes continue, and Russia's fuel production collapses further. Supply chains could break entirely, leading to widespread shortages and mass layoffs. The Kremlin's strategy, raising taxes and prioritizing the military, looks increasingly unsustainable. Putin is racing against time, hoping for victory before the economy collapses. If inflation, shortages, and despair overwhelm the home front, his grip on power could slip. The choices made in the coming months will decide Russia's fate. The stranded trucks are more than a logistical problem, they're a symbol of a nation in crisis. Russia's road ahead is uncertain, and the destination is unknown.